Welcome to TC Tiahui Talks. Chucha Centro Cultural, located on Tataviam land in the northeast San Fernando Valley, is rooted in ancestral knowledge, culture, the arts, literacy, and social justice as a means to personal and communal transformation. It is a place where hearts and minds have united for change for over 19 years. Join us as we share the stories of personal transformation and our understanding of the world that unites us as a community. We must remember that another world has always been possible. Tiahui, a Nahuatl word for adelante, to move forward. Like a spiral, together we move towards a better future, cognizant of the resiliency we carry from our past.
So, hey everybody, my name is Rebecca. This is Tiahui Talks. Thanks for tuning in. My gender pronouns are she, her, hers. I have curly, dark black hair, pretty much. Um, Brown eyes, dark brown eyes. My skin's like, I guess, lighter brown. And I have a black Tiachucha shirt with a heart on it that says I love Tiachuchas. And in the background, I have posters that are like political posters, pretty much. I have some instruments back there. I have an old dresser back there that I think is 100 years old, I guess, fun fact. Um, and or over that. And yeah, so why don't we start off with if y'all could introduce yourselves too.
Okay, I'll go. Hey everyone, my name is Melissa Ehekalli Sanvicente. I'm the Associate Director at the Chuchas. My gender pronouns are she, her, ella, and I am wearing kind of like a dark blue blouse. I have my beautiful huichol earrings, and then have black long hair with some wisdom gray highlights. And my background is I have a couple of cuadros posters in the back, and actually have a purple ceiling with a gray background.
I like the wisdom. What wisdom? What?
My wisdom gray highlights.
I like
All
that.
right. That was great. That was awesome. Well, my name is Freddy Chavez, and among some in the community, I am known as Tata Freddy, and it's an honor that I received um, working and dedicated to working with our youth and my community throughout my life. And I am a danzante of the Mexica tradition and Chicano, Mexicano with Chumash ancestry. And my pronouns are he, his, him. And my background behind me is there's like a very flowery type of a curtain uh, to a doorway. It's an old house that I'm in, built like in the 20s. And next to me is a calavera, which is like a wind chime, and uh, and another chime connected to it. And the colors are pretty vivid. Um, they're type like earth tone colors, and I'm wearing a plaid shirt with dark brown hair and light light brown skin, and really looking forward to this conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you both for joining. And we're just gonna have a conversation about what we think about motivation. Since we're starting off the Gregorian New Year. But first, I wanted to ask what you all think. Why do we? I always I guess the culture with Yachucha folks uh, is we don't just say Happy New Year. We say Happy Gregorian New Year. So what is does somebody can somebody tell me why do we do that?
I think is in identifying like Chicana, indigenous mujer, acknowledging that ancestral knowledge, traditions, and knowing that there are other calendars, right, besides um, the Gregorian calendar that we use now. So then, whenever I say or acknowledge that I'll say happy Gregorian New Year. Knowing that, again, I honor another indigenous calendar, the Mexica calendar, and our New Year is really not going to be till 3 months from now still, right? But it's but I think it's important, right? As Freddie mentions, that it's it's this whole concept and understanding and different concepts of time, and was the Gregorian calendar is just something that we use. That we use because I feel like sometimes it's really more of a functional calendar. Everything runs on the Gregorian calendar, right? But again, as as also at the Achuchas, I think we acknowledge ancestral knowledge, wisdom, traditions that it's only natural, I think, for me to kind of make a distinction between both of them.
I guess, like the indigenous concept of time has more to do with the natural movement of cycles that already exist. So how you mentioned like the winter time, that's the time of when it represents the time of the elders, and the indigenous people measure their dates of birth dates by winters. Some of them, how many winters that they've gone through, because spring is a renewal. So that's like the birth. So that represents like the youth, the children. Actually, it represents the children, and the summer and is the youth, and the fall is like the adults, and then the winter is the elders. So that's really, really, really incredible, because I find it fascinating, because you start to look at your stages of life like that, like a cycles, the Gregorian calendar is so linear. And you mentioned something that was pretty good. You mentioned a word is very functional. It's good for paying your bills and keeping you in debt and all these other kind of, yeah, and stressing you out, really, because you've got this calendar and you've got these days, and you're just constantly like, projecting into the future, and you got to do this, and you got to meet these deadlines, and then all these holidays come up, and then all kinds of money gets spent, birthdays and all these other things, when in reality, there it's so important to stay present. It's so important not to focus so much on the past, or be anxious about the future, because that's what causes us all this stress. We don't live in the present moment, and in the present moment, it's so important to keep experiencing what's happening in the here and now. you know it's our responsibility to protect our joy. You're responsible for your joy. And when I learned that teaching, that you're responsible for your joy and no one else's, it was such a liberating experience for me, such a liberating uh, teaching. I'm not responsible for the joy of my parents or my partners or my children or anyone but myself. And you need to protect your joy, and I think that becomes like the basis of motivation, you know, is what is it that brings you joy? And because we do all these things and then we go look for joy, you know, like we'll go work and we'll say like, I got to go work and I got to save up some money so I can buy gear, so I can go camping, so I can experience joy there. You know what I mean? Like we do all that planning, and instead of joy should just be present all the time in your life, constantly. Or there'll be the absence of joy, but that's what life is about. You know what I mean? Where, you can't always have joy all the time. It's just like you can't always have harmony all the time. there'll be the absence of that, which will just be the opposite. But it's just a cycle. It'll be okay. You just got to wait till it goes back to that cycle. Completes itself. And so that's what it is. Life is cycles. And when we start looking at time like the seasons, I think it starts shifting. It starts shifting the way you look. You stop living off the calendar and the watch so much, because that alienates us so much. We become so alienated from ourselves. From as opposed to your time. When you get yourself like in harmony and grounded, and you really understand truly who you are and what your gifts are that you have to offer, you're always on time. You're always exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're never late. Really, you know, it's a pretty interesting thing. It takes a while to get there, but things flow better that way. It's less stressful, but it's a process. Yeah, it's a process. I truly believe it's something that we can continue exploring. You know, it took me a long time to arrive to that. You know, um, I try to plan accordingly and do everything I can to be exactly where I'm supposed to be, punctual, whatever. But if things interfere, or I don't get there on time, on the watch time or whatever interfered brought things that put me exactly where I need to be, and I'm okay with that. And if people are upset when I arrive, I know that I arrived at the time I was supposed to arrive because something else happened that was important before I got there that had to happen. I'm constantly trying to be present. I'm not like putting that out of my my reality. You know what I mean? I accept my own concept of my time, where I'm supposed to be, and what I have to offer. You know, is that's kind of like my experience or my take on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and I think that's um, really beautiful to think about. Um, that we are the artists of our own life. We are the ones, as much as we can, like responsible, and can curate our own happiness and joy. um, and as we talk about time and indigenous calendars, and which is also kind of really interesting, right? That there's so much symbology in indigenous calendars. um, I think about like the Mexica, the Maya. I do know, of course, a lot more about the Mexica calendar and how every day has its own symbology, right? The whole year has its symbology. The month has its symbology, and I think approaching time that way, and like las cuentas accounts, is just a whole different experience, that in some way, that is fully tied to like nature. It's fully tied to nature, animals. Right, like you have like the 20 dias, which is like in the Mexica and the Mayan calendar, and those 20 days are the ones that rotate for 18 months, right? And even within the 365 day count in the indigenous calendar, you also have the count of the gestation of birth, like the Tonalpoali, the 260 days within that. Um, so it's just I feel like a whole different approach on calendar time, on really like connection to self, and how everything around us is connected to us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the importance of acknowledging that. And I feel like that's something that indigenous calendars really really hone in on, right? Really, again, that ancestral knowledge connection, I feel like can completely be seen in the calendario. Like right now, we're in a Tekbat year, right? And that whole Tekbat, which is the flint, carrizo, is the whole symbology of the year. Still right now, that's not going to change, right, until March. So I think that's really something important to acknowledge, that some people may not know.
Yeah, totally gives a different framework for things that, um, like being born on a certain day, or knowing the importance of knowing your strengths and your high potential stuff and your stuff that you might need to work on. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if we had um, learned more about, like, let's say the Mexica calendar, we could have applied that early on in our lives instead of it later on, like maybe realizing or accepting certain realities of ourselves, like, or even like putting that as a focus. Because if you're not focusing on those personal strengths and stuff, then it's not gonna, that kind of consciousness isn't gonna, nothing's gonna happen. It's just gonna be like, you have to go to school, go get a job, and then make money, kind of thing, instead of really focusing on somebody's development. I think there's some powerful, like, knowledge in the calendar, for like the Mexica calendar. So
For the Indigenous and Us project, which are on our YouTube channel, with Maestro Coscacuautli, Huitzil Centeo, Huitzi, and um, Maestro Carlos, Juan Carlos from Morelos, Mexico. And they both kind of take different approaches on explaining the calendario, the calendar, and a little bit more of like even the counts that are within that 365 day count. So that's definitely accessible for people to, go on again on our YouTube channel and watch.
It's our ancestral understanding of cosmic time. The movement of the cosmos, man, and that's what's so intense, because it takes it to another level. It's a whole different type of understanding of time. And the planets, the universe, our relation to that. You know the plants and the animals, their cycles of time. Um, for example, the empty caracol, represents the zero, because it's that's in the, like, the spiritual, mystical, but also mathematical understanding of the numbers and time. Because the empty caracol is, there was a living animal there, and now it's no longer there. It's empty, but it's the symbol but it's still there. The caracol represents that it existed. So that represents a cycle of time, which was the life of the animal that lived in the caracol. You know, that's like a more of a mathematical uh, understanding of a number, or and time. Yeah. So yeah, our ancestors were like more like, there was a mathematical understanding, but it was a spiritual, scientific understanding of life. And that opens up a whole new world for us, because everything in this world that uses the Gregorian calendar is linear, and they separate everything. Spirituality's over here, and science is over there, and economy's over here, and social makeup and political. And our ancestors, everything was connected. you know so the communities and the families and everything was organized based on the observation of everything that was around, from the universe to on earth, and the animals and the relationships with the plants and everything. So it's just a whole new world that we could look into, where there is a union of science and spirituality. and it has nothing to do, spirituality has nothing to do with what organized religions have identified as spirituality. That's something different. It's completely has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with religion, you know. Um, and that's where a lot of us, a lot of our upbringing causes this disconnect because you're indoctrinated with the certain beliefs that you have to accept, which come from medieval times. They come from the same people that brought you the calendar and the clock. You know, it was comes from people that created these instruments to control other people. Even the language, English language, is a language that was created to control people. Just dominate and control, and it's been about that the whole time. It's been about certain people having the right to dominate other people, and we need to know and understand what happened, so that we can move forward, because it's about moving forward and just uh, healing and recovering from whatever we've gone through, but moving forward and into a new direction, uh, where we're supposed to be, because we're the descendant of the original timekeepers, understanding of cosmic time, that we're the descendants. It's in our ancestral memory. We just have to reawaken. It's in our genetic makeup. It's it's who we are. Yeah.
I definitely agree with that. That it's yeah, it's in our genetic makeup. It's in us, and it's just about reawakening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which kind of actually, actually, I do think about this whole concept and um, indigenous calendars and how um, again, how every day has its symbology, and as we talk about like motivation and whatnot. I think if one follows some of these calendars, then you'd know that um, although we are in a new year, in a new Gregorian New Year, and it's a chance to kind of restart. um, there's always kind of like another there's always time to restart if that's what we feel that we need to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes if you're following a specific indigenous calendar, right, and the Mexica one, like Sipactli days happen every 20 days, and those are like perfect days to initiate or start something that you want to do, right? But I don't I don't necessarily equate that, or can in any way really equate that really in the Gregorian calendar, right? Um, so, because again, as we're talking about it, it wasn't really built. It wasn't really built for that, right? It's a just really a functional thing, um, to just count, to count time, but as you mentioned also, Freddie, as this whole concept of the importance of like moving forward. um we named this segment or this podcast, Tiahui, right? Tiahui Talks. um so from what I know, of course, Tiahui is a Nahuatl word for adelante, to move forward. And I feel like there could be so much significance in that word, Tiahui, right? Which is exactly why we named that. But would you like to perhaps like add anything on what comes up for you with the word Tiahui?
Yeah. With the word Tiawi, a lot of times also, in order to activate things and make things happen, and moving forward, we need discipline. And that's one of the things that I learned from a long while back, when I first started dancing, that word kept coming up, discipline. And it's really, a lot of young people, they'll push back with discipline because it's kind of like you think of discipline as like, ramrod straight military, or everybody wants to, whatever, just whatever baggage the word discipline carries with it. Usually there's going to be a resistance from the youth to implement any type of discipline in our life. We haven't been brought up with that type of culture, unless you go into the military or something. Uh, but we can replace that word. And I found that instead of using discipline, we should move forward with skills. So in order to acquire skills, that requires discipline, but we won't even use the word discipline. So you need to identify what skills are you going to acquire so that you can move forward and contribute as well to the benefit of the rest, because it's not just about ourselves, you know. And there's just so much we can launch from there, you know. I think we all need to have skills. A lot of us have skills that we haven't identified, or we're starting to understand the skills that we have, or the characteristics or traits that you need to be successful, or to be like being able to be at the right place at the right time. For example, if you have a skill or you have like a trait of being trustworthy, you know, and people can trust you, all kinds of opportunities open up for you, you know. But that takes honor, it takes dignity and things like that. And you can promote that as something that you have to offer just within your own personality, like, you know, um, people open up. It's hard to find people other people can trust, so that's like something that you can work on, for example. um, but when I'm referring to skills as well, is like, hey, in all of the crafts, any in the crafts and building skills, whatever you can learn, we have so many. It's becoming so evident now that the trade skills are so vital. They're so important. The uh, the the skills of building, craftsmanship, carpentry, you know we and for the youth right now, especially in Los Angeles, that is absolutely available right now. The unions are accepting youth from 16 to 24 years old. You're just 16 to 24 years, they're going to take you if you want to learn a craft. They will teach you. And it's so hard to get into those apprenticeship programs. Usually it's through the unions, or you need to be sponsored, or you go to the trade techs or the community colleges and take a number of units, so that then you can, go in. But there's also resources, and I know people out in Los Angeles. We have contacts where people can be sponsored in uh, through these trades. There's like 25 trades. So that's just an example, you know. But other skills that we need to identify amongst ourselves: medicine, um, you know, a lot of like uh, like therapeutic type, because we have so much trauma in our community. People that can have the skill of calming other people. We have so many people suffering from mental illness and the consequences of drug abuse, and it just takes certain people that have within them that calming effect and the skills to help ground and guide them again, to get centered. um, it's just, we could just launch from this discussion into what it is that we need to do. But I would equate discipline with skills is what I'm trying to get to.
I think part of fire, having fire, is your drive to being the best person so you can contribute to a larger picture because we are in this world that's colonized. You know, if post colonialism didn't end, it's still happening. Like we're in this capitalist world. We have this what's going on um, with people upholding faces in office. Like there's like it's a messed up world. There's like a lot of issues, and I feel like something like a fire could be being the best version of ourselves again, like because of a bigger like we're part of a bigger cause. So I was hoping that y'all could talk a little bit more about what you do, like what kind of work do you do, and the fire, your own fire with that.
Okay.
I can go.
Okay.
Um, I think I think about right, the inner fire, the passions. I since a really young age, or a youth at least, like 16, 17, I I think that's the definitely the stage where, one begins to try to find themselves. And I got really drawn to like Mexica, Aztec danza um, at that age. Um, and it was kind of interesting because I I was practically in that by myself, or try, that was my motivation. I wanted to learn it, so I just found really any avenue to try to really get into that, which I ended up through school. But even then, I still do, danza today, and it's one of the things that I completely love, and really like ancestral knowledge, ancestral traditions, practices, ceremonies. I feel like that's what drives me. And it's what kind of, even in the midst of sometimes all the chaos, and social injustice in society, pues todo, I'm going to sometimes, although even during the pandemic, right, sometimes going to a danza practice, and being in ceremony with community, just was a healing process in its own right, and that's something that I honor and love, and at one point filters into the work that I do with the Chuchas, out of that love for ancestral knowledge and traditions. um, we built the Indigenous in Us project, but even before this specific project, it's something that's like fully embedded into what we do at the Achuchas. So it was kind of it just kind of merges and intertwines, interweaves um, perfectly, right? And even though I I myself have my moments where I can, get a little down, or just feeling like the pressures of, I'm going to put quote unquote life, the pressures of life and whatnot. I have to remind myself that anytime I'm having these, or in these moments, I'm going to call them like slightly moments of darkness, not that they have to be bad, I don't think the darkness is bad in any way. But I mean, how do you, it's a balance, right? And sometimes I always have to remind myself, and to practice certain things daily. And I think that's what helps me to keep that, or I guess my internal fire going, because I have moments where I feel like it's dwindling, you know and sometimes it means like, okay, I need to get up early. I need to welcome the sunrise. I need to welcome Tonatiuh, because I need I need some like beautiful, strong strength, light, that's gonna, and spend some time, you know kind of receiving that. And those are things that I picked up from, um practicing practicing my, indigenous traditions. I'm also going to throw in music in there, as we are obsessed with playing, or I'm obsessed too, with playing Son Jarocho music and Harana specifically. And I think at one point, I want to say honoring the internal feminine is what I feel motivates me, and is that passion, right? Is that internal fire to kind of keep moving forward.
Right. That's really great. You inspired me just listening to you. Um, so many years that I've known you, and all the growth and all this evolving that you've gone through. It's really that we've all gone through, because my relationship with Tia Chucha's all these years has allowed me to grow and evolve and transform myself. And the passion and the fire really that brought me here, and that even brought me to Tia Chucha's, has always been the danza and that rhythm of that drum. Just that drum, just when it's properly played. And there's certain times when you just hit that drum right, and that skin is singing with that real deep tone, and you're not hitting it hard where you're making this really loud, but just that deep rumbling rhythm that can come out of it, and you're able to dance to it. It's always been about that. It's always been about dancing to that rhythm of that drum. And when we were younger, I mean, it was a different dance. And that's where the fire for me has always come from, that from being able to dance, trying to keep up with everyone else that was younger than me. But I've been able to finally, throughout the years, you find your dance. And um, and I can walk through the dance now. I can dance it. And what brings me fire is being able to share this passion with other people that want to learn to dance. And I'm able to spend time with them and teach them, whether they be children, young adults, or elders. You know, I've been able to have the opportunity to work with all these different groups and get them to that point where I'll teach them the essentials and the basics, and we do dance, but then they find their own dance and they find their own movement when I teach them the structure of what we're doing. And it's that's where the fire is for me there, that danza, arriving to it, I arrived to it through ceremony. And so everything that I got exposed to when I first was experienced danza was ceremonial to me. I treated it like ceremony. I just observed, because in ceremony I was taught, don't be asking questions, just observe, and just that's it. You're gonna probably get answers to questions you haven't asked, you know, because everything's like inverted in this world. It's the opposite. You'll be receiving answers and you haven't even asked a question, and then later on comes the question. It's such an incredible experience. And it's being able to get these experiences and convert them into lessons to be teaching at Tia Chuchas for our youth that are incarcerated, or for our youth that are in the community, teaching rhythms to the best that we can through the internet, or teaching storytelling, um, and the techniques behind that, and the healing that comes behind that, uh, is just, I just feel so grateful, and I'm just I'm so happy to have been able to arrive to this point by by being on this path, by being on this path of trying to understand what our ancestors left for us through ceremony, through different ceremonies, through danza ceremonies, through sweat ceremonies, through songs, learning, experiencing, and carrying that on a daily life. Because the ceremony is celebration of life. So it's about celebrating life. And you go through these cycles that I could, that you mentioned, Ehekalli, like these, you mentioned them like dark cycles or dark times, or to me, sometimes those cycles are doubt. I go through these periods of doubt or through these periods of fear, which is normal. It's like, we all go through that. And so we have to like kind of get through it because it's just a downtime, you know, and and I really should be knowing where's the moon at the time because it's probably affecting me, And when you mentioned about honoring the feminine um, and learning what that really means, and learning from Luis that the arts and creativity and imagination is feminine energy, and that's like that's a beautiful truth, that's a beautiful thing because that's what we need to protect and embrace, creating spaces of imagination and creativity for ourselves and for our youth that that we need to preserve because the future is going to eliminate that. And it's starting, for example, when you go on the computer and you're already thinking, well, I better not put that in because somebody could be listening to me. So you're already self-censoring. And when you're self-censoring, um, the spirit of imagination and creativity can't thrive. And so we need to take care of that. That's that feminine energy. It's pretty incredible. And this is from just the experiences I've had, um, learning what our ancestors left us, learning songs and dance and ceremony and meeting elders and teachers. I've been blessed with good guides, real good guides. And now uh, coming to realize at this point, we're the ones we've been looking for all this time. It's us. It's up to us to be the caretakers. It's up to us to start teaching the youth, the newer generations. It's up to us to bring the medicine, the songs, and the dance. It's us that we've been looking for all this time, and that comes with the self-realization of who we are. The awakening of our ancestral memory. Um, when I was young, as I was learning, I was also put in positions of going to the community and start teaching. And so we didn't have time to like learn. And then when we're ready, we'll teach. We just had to go out and just start teaching because it's movement. It's movimiento. It's like, this is what's happening. And we need to learn and we need to teach right here and right now. You know, that's what's happening. So, and that's what I keep experiencing. And that's what I try to promote. But those are things like that, opportunities like that through Tia Chuchas that I had the opportunity to experience, just really help my awareness and my consciousness, and I continue to grow, evolve, and transform my reality. That's what it's about, because those are the three things that the universe is constantly doing: growing, evolving, and transforming. And we're a reflection of the universe, so that's what we need to be doing. That's like, we need to implement that in our life all the time, because we're going to transcend. You know, we replace that word death with transcendence. You know, don't even use the word death. It's got so much negative baggage and such like a finality to it. Forget that word. I don't like to use it. I use transcendence. Grow, evolve, and transform your reality to prepare for your transcendence.
I
So
like
yeah,
how you challenge like the words you said death and also like because of the baggage that comes with it. It's a good point. And also with the discipline, like that
yeah,
does have a lot of baggage.
yeah.
So like that's I love that you point that out. So that you can apply different concepts of like understanding of these things that we're not taught, you know. So um and I feel like when you're driven by your what you're passionate about and you know it's not like it's like your version of your passions is your own story and not anybody else's story. And if
Mhm.
you can't go wrong with your own story because it's your
Yeah,
experience, you know. So like and
absolutely.
once you're in your own story, you're following your own passions and I think you're kind of you found yourself in a certain places that you didn't you're like, oh my gosh, I was like in a certain path that just comes out because you're following your passion. You're not following someone
Mhm.
else's passions that's not right for you.
Exactly.
Like you're
Exactly.
following your own like fire, your own light, your what you love to do. So
Hmm.
I think that's really important to be able to do that. It's not not perfection. Everything's changing. It's not good to always to expect perfection, like or expect someone else's acceptance too. Because I think when you're doing something and you're doing it with your heart, you don't care what other people think in a way. But also I also hear too that I feel like it's important to be open for growth and change and then implementing in the stuff you love, you know. So
Hmm.
um that's why I think I feel like I mean I'm 32 but I feel like something that I feel like I don't know if this is right to think about, but I almost feel like the thing is to be able to be grounded in who you are so you're not easily swayed,
Yes.
but still be open to expand and to change too. Because
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
stuck, then it's kind of like you're stuck in a season in a way, um,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
stuck in in being paused in the yeah, just being stuck isn't good either.
Why do I think about a tree? You know,
A
I think
tree.
about a tree. I think about a tree because think about it's trees can grow, expand, but at the same time, they're like firmly rooted into the ground.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
like I
Right.
mean, a big wind, you know, or a hurricane has to come to kind of like tumble it down. Um, so it's kind of interesting, right? Again, looking at the importance of how we can see things in ourselves reflected in nature, right? So I think just as you were saying that, Rebecca, I was thinking about a tree. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And the trees are they've discovered that the way their root system is set up with other trees and everything else, there's an intelligence going on down there with the root system. They communicate with each other. So a tree is a really incredible, yeah, and it is grounded, but it is always like yeah, growing and expanding. Trees are
Mhm.
beautiful, man. Trees are
Some
incredible.
yeah, they are incredible. Um, um, I think something I like noticed, um, that I think y'all are good at is prepping yourself and your environment. 'Cause, um, like in danza, how we do, like how y'all do it, Ehekalli and all the women who run the circle, like there's like I feel like there's a care going on, like to prep an environment for a certain thing to happen, like a certain outcome. And I think Freddie, you do this too. I've seen in doing in class when you're prepping your environment to teach. I see like you prep it so that it's gonna be in a zone and stuff. So I feel like that happens in a lot of ways that we had to what we were talking about, like kind of like the point of living in life is to be able to put things in place to that you can be happy, or like putting yourself like a nurturing environment so that for your own happiness in a way.
Mm.
So I was wondering what y'all think about that, and any tips to helping people finding their own ways to prep their life environment or their life book or their life painting, so that people are not stuck in the darkness in a way, or stuck, or yeah, stuck, because darkness isn't bad. Um, but like so any kind of tips of being able to be grounded in that.
Okay.
I think as you mentioned that, and right, you bring up kind of like, you know, the in danza there's always this, there's all this preparation that happens pre, you know, before you actually begin the danza. And that's like our momosli, right? You need our ombligo, our flowers, our agua, the fire. Um and I think I think sometimes even I have to sometimes um sometimes be more intentional, sometimes perhaps be more aware of also doing that like fully in my space. um and which I do, you know, like I have my altar in my space, you know, I have my desk, I have certain things, but I think I have to, I'm also learning that, you know, so I'm learning to, you know, make sure that you know, I clear out the space that I need to in the mornings. There's like set up for work or X cosa, you know, kind of like tend to the altar at least daily, you know. Um, I'm sometimes even like saging myself or setting intention for the day in the morning before going straight into my work day. And I think those are things that I'm also still, I want to say that I know them, but it's always another thing to put things into practice, like fully, you know. And I think every time, you know, as we talk about like these waves of mood, I want to say, and especially during the pandemic, it has gotten sometimes a little bit little bit out of hand for me, where I just have to be more intentional and sage myself during the day, say, or in the beginning, my space, um, and just prep things, and again, just be more intentional. And I feel like when I do that, even sometimes, even getting, I may not be leaving my house, but even getting ready for work, just getting dressed for work, it just gives a whole different like vibration to the
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
That I think it's important to just acknowledge that and do that, and whatever it is, whatever that is for somebody, it's to just kind of continue it, right? There's certain things that are staple for the day, and um I think about is if that's like our raíces, our roots, and the things that we do that are daily, um, that are definitely important to always continue for our mental health, our well-being. And I feel like when you go into ceremony, when you go into danza, I feel like that's like a whole other version of prepping. But if we also think of life as ceremony, then how is it that we prep for, you know, our own life and our life ceremony, and knowing that every every day we wake up is like a new beginning too, you know. So yeah, definitely working myself um, every day. Again, it's a new it's a new day on continuing and setting, I guess, setting up the stage for life, right?
Right. Perfect. Yeah, that made me think of the reason a lot of us in our communities have so much issues going on with us ourselves, with our lives, is because we've been disconnected from our rituals and our ceremonies. And so, there's like, there'll be like Mexica rituals or Mexica ceremonies, that people, that we've learned or that we practice, that has to do with, like the four sacred elements of life, or the four directions, or the four sacred colors that represent, humanity and things like that. And that's all good, and but it some people, it's not for some people, because they're not, because they don't grasp the idea of what is happening. So so there's also something that I read that was very interesting, a secular approach to the same thing, a secular approach of rituals and ceremonies. And this was something that I was reading, where writers and creative people, they all have, uh, first of all, they all get up, tendency to get up around 4 in the morning, because the 4 in the morning, they say, is when the Mother Earth is awakening. It's that shift is going on. And they'll be like, they'll have that cabin in the woods or something, with that special writing table and the special pen, that they keep in that cabin, on that writing table, in the woods, for example, or wherever your writing space is. Maybe it's a little room you built in the back or something. But they'll come and light up the fire and put some tea or whatever it is that they're going to drink, and or coffee or whatever it is, and sit and go and start to write. So all that process is ritual and ceremony. It's just they don't call it that. And the reason, and they'll do this consistently, because when they sit, they're opening up the mind to the stream of consciousness. We're doing the same thing with our ceremonies. We're just calling our ancestors. We call it calling our ancestors, our guides, but it's pretty much the same thing. And so, I think it's important that everyone find their own way of grounding themselves, literally grounding, like if you find yourself totally disconnected, uh, put your feet on the earth. And if it's really bad, I mean, just dig a hole and bury your feet into the earth, because you actually start to ground. When they have like electrical things running, they put a rod into the earth to ground it, because the earth is the ground. And that's what's happening to us as people. We ground ourselves. And uh, and it has to do with that, and also with water. If you could be next to water, and it just starts as simple as that. As simple as that. And whatever whatever you do to ground yourself, and begin your day, or usually with the sunrise ceremony, or greeting the sun. They're finding that the people that are suffering from COVID, that are going on the respirator, they're low in vitamin D. And you can get vitamin D from 20 minutes in the sun, especially in the sunrise, uh, the early sun. The early sun is like the best sun. It's not so direct, and it's perfect. 20 minutes every day, sit there and meditation, and get vitamin D. Our ancestors knew all these things. They were masters of the universe, and the medicines, and the planet, the plants, the animals. They knew these things. And uh, and I think that's why it's important that we just create some type of ritual to ground ourselves every day. Just go out, especially when you're like really feeling down, to go outside when the sun's going to come up, or even if the sun already came up, um, and feel and listen and see, you know, um, experience with your senses that morning and realize that you're intact. And when you think, I have nothing, I don't have anything, well, you have all your senses, and you can do whatever you want right here, right now. It's kind of like to remind you, you know, especially if you have your legs and your arms, and you can walk. It's kind of like a humbling experience to remind yourself that you have a new beginning to start again. And a lot of times people get frustrated because they got to start all over again. And you shouldn't, because you're not starting from ground zero. You're starting with experience. Because if you have to start again, well, probably the last time you didn't have the experience. So it's never the way it seems. We always have to be kind of changing the way we look at things, and we always have to be challenging ourselves to to it isn't what it appears to be all the time. It's something else is going on. you know what is it?
Mm-hmm.
And we're always battling fear and doubt, so that's always a big obstacle. So it's just these things that we need to kind of share with each other so we can remind each other, so that when I'm down and you guys happen to see me, you can remind me, you know, because I go through cycles too. We all do, you know. Um, it's an incredible journey. It really is.
I think about like when people are maybe stuck or can't see a certain outcome. It's kind of like we're in the future too much, and
Mm.
how to be, and then so you can't see something else. You just see one thing, in a way. So um, so it's good that those tips to ground, like so that to help you be like, this isn't the outcome you're worried about isn't like just because you might think it's going to be a certain outcome. It's like pulling back and be like you're into the future too much. It's not like that. It could be something completely different that you don't see. um,
Right.
so I think that I'm glad that you also said that if you see me down, like like how we can support each other when we're also down, because sometimes when we're
Yeah.
maybe in that season, or maybe we're in that where we can't see the next, we're seeing a certain reality, that's we're stuck in a certain picture. um that's hard to see outside of that picture, when you're, let's say, um yeah. So I think right now I feel like just to listeners, it's I think it's important to be okay with saying that you need help, or like if you would like a certain support from your peers. um I think that's like, don't forget that we're in community, and we should be able to support each other, and then we also had an episode on mental health like a couple of segments ago, and there's like some folks I think might need even more, and we have peer support, but sometimes we might need that, like to have somebody that's like a, I guess for some people therapy, that's what's good for them, that works, so there's that episode about that stuff too. um but yeah, I think it's important to like just have a reminder to go outside, get some fresh air, get some sun, drink your water, and go. It's okay to ask for help sometimes, and ask your friends for anything like that, for some kind of support, even just some somebody to hear you out too. So um yeah, but
You mentioned something about getting stuck, and I remember one thing I learned from Luis many years ago that he said, um, to never, stay stuck, you know, whenever you find yourself stuck, you need to make a decision. Any decision, he said. I remember he said, it doesn't matter if it's a bad decision. Just make a decision to be unstuck because you don't want to be stuck. Because it's like water that stagnates, After a while, it smells foul, It needs to move to have life. And that's the way we need to be as well. We need to be moving. So again, we go back to, Tiahui, moving forward, constantly moving and try not to stay stuck. Make a decision, doesn't matter whatever it takes to not be stuck, just to move forward. That's what it's about.
Thank you again for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow Tia Chuchas on social media. Please support our online bookstore. You can find the links in our podcast bio. Stay safe, stay creative. Tiahui.